So, the European Union just dropped the world's first major law to regulate AI. It's a really big deal. But when you get past all the headlines, there's a simple but absolutely critical question. When an AI system messes up, who's the cop on the beat? Who is actually in charge of making sure these powerful new technologies are safe for all of us? Think about it. AI is already making huge, sometimes life or death decisions in our hospitals, in our banks, and on our roads. We've got the rule book now, sure, but a rule book is pretty useless without a referee. So who gets to blow the whistle when a company steps out of line?
And that question, well, it takes us right to the very heart of the EU's AI Act, which is, without a doubt, the world's most ambitious attempt to get a handle on the AI revolution.
The goal of the AI Act is massive, to create one single, safe market for AI across all of Europe. But the success of this whole project, a project that's really going to shape the future of tech, it all hinges on one thing: the people who will actually enforce these rules.
Okay, so who are these enforcers? Well, the AI Act gives them a very specific and very important title. They're called notifying authorities. The best way to think of them is as the ultimate gatekeepers. Now, they don't test every AI system themselves. Instead, they're the ones who assess and approve the independent third-party companies that do the actual hands-on safety checks. So they're not just the referees, they're the ones who train and certify the referees. But deciding who these gatekeepers should be and what powers they should have, well, that was anything but simple. It actually sparked a 3-year-long tug-of-war between the different branches of the EU government, a real battle that would ultimately define the future of AI regulation. This whole drama played out over one crucial part of the law, Article 28. It all started with a simple proposal from the European Commission. But then the Council, which represents all the national governments, stepped in and kind of watered it down. That's when the European Parliament came in swinging, demanding stronger protections and a lot more expertise. This back and forth went on for years, until finally, a compromise was reached.
And one of the biggest fights was all about fairness. I mean, would these new rules create a system where only the huge tech giants could afford to comply, effectively crushing smaller, innovative companies with tons of red tape?
So on one side, you had the Parliament, really worried about the little guy. They wanted a special rule written right into the law to protect small businesses. Their whole goal was to force enforcers to consider a company's size. But the Council pushed back hard, arguing that the law was already fair. They said that by focusing on the risk of the AI, not the size of the company, the rules would naturally be balanced for everyone. And in the end, the Council won that argument, and that special protection was removed.
But the fight wasn't just about the rules. It was about the people. I mean, who is actually qualified to make these huge decisions? What kind of expertise do you really need to regulate a technology that is literally changing the world?
You know, the evolution of this part of the law is really telling. The first draft was so vague, just calling for sufficient competent personnel. But the final version? It's crystal clear. It demands experts not just in AI and law, but specifically in the supervision of fundamental rights. This was a huge victory for everyone who argued that you just can't regulate AI safely without deeply understanding its impact on people. Okay, so the tug-of-war is over. The ink is dry. What does this new rulebook actually look like in practice? How are different countries starting to respond? What's interesting is that the final law didn't create a single, rigid system. Instead, it gave each country the freedom to design its own approach. And we're already seeing this fascinating split in how different nations are choosing to enforce these new rules. Take France, for example. They went for a centralized approach, putting their powerful data protection agency in charge of the whole shebang. The advantage there? A single, clear point of contact. Germany, on the other hand, took a totally different path, spreading their responsibility across agencies that already have deep expertise. The thinking here is that the people who already get medical devices are probably the best people to regulate AI in medical devices. Both are valid strategies, for sure, but they could lead to very different results.
So, what does this whole journey tell us? Well, when you take a step back, you can really see the shape of a massive compromise taking form.
So let's just boil it down. The EU started with a pretty rigid, kind of one-size-fits-all idea. But after years of debate, they ended up with a system that is way more flexible, it's expert-driven, and it's really focused on protecting our fundamental rights. At the end of the day, it's a system that trusts national governments to get the details right while still setting a clear, high bar for safety and fairness for the entire continent. And this is the classic EU balancing act, right? A single market with a single set of rules, but with the freedom for each country to enforce those rules in its own way.
It's a compromise that's really trying to get the best of both worlds, the power of a unified European market and the wisdom of local expertise.
And this really brings us to the big million-dollar question. As we face a future filled with even more powerful technologies, things like quantum computing or genetic engineering, is this the right way to regulate them? A single set of rules enforced by a patchwork of national agencies? It's a huge question, and it's one we're all going to be grappling with for years to come.